welcome to episode 77 of my podcast, The View from the Crow's Nest. And it is the 21st of August 2020, which makes it exactly 1 month before my 40th birthday. And if you'd asked me 20 years ago, when I was living with my bandmates, playing in a band, being all rock and roll, what I'd be doing on my 40th birthday, where I'd be, I probably wouldn't have said stranded at my mother-in-law's with my wife and 2 children, because that's not so rock and roll. But I'm happy, man. I'm very happy. So, it's funny how life is. But that doesn't mean that I'm leaving it as it is. So, as you may or may not know, I'm working towards on a couple of exciting projects at the moment. The first one is Audience Ninja, my marketing agency, and that's going well. That's definitely going well, so that's cool. Today I started the process of trying to get some more clients. I have a prospects of about 20 odd people who may be interested. We'll see. But as you again may or may not know, I'd really like us to niche, to really focus as an agency on helping musicians particularly, because I think they're a bit of an underserved community and obviously very close to my heart. So these are 20 or so musicians, and I really hope we're able to work with a few of them and help them grow and make a living from their art, which is the dream of all musicians. So we'll see what happens there. And the other project that is moving forward is the Grip the Sky experience, which is my EP release. It's basically done. It's done in its first iteration. So one small thing, which is to make sure the emails, when people get emails from it, seem to come from me and not from some random company that's in the middle of sending the emails. But hopefully that'll get resolved soon or by next week. But the big step now, or I don't want to say challenge, but it's built and it works great. It can be improved. I've got ideas of how to improve it, but that'll be for a future iteration of it. But the next thing is the marketing side of it. So that's what I was looking into today, because it's not simply a case of just bang it out there, because that wouldn't really be of much use as a marketing experiment, which is kind of partially what the Grip the Sky experience is meant to be as well. So I'm looking at a bunch of different tools that I've already got that I haven't deployed yet, which do different cool stuff, and making sure that basically everything is tracked and everything is set up correctly and configured so that the experience is as optimum as I can make it for the user, and equally as beneficial as I can make it as a marketer, as the owner of the site and the data. Obviously, I want it to work on all levels, and so you must put in the prep work beforehand in order to really reap the benefits. It's literally the same as, putting stuff into the ground that you're going to grow, the seeds and whatnot. You don't see anything for quite some time, but if you don't put them in the ground and you don't cultivate them and you don't do the right foundations, then you're not going to get any crop down the line. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on that. And outside of that, today, my other couple of focuses, I am probably going to need to take my oral Italian exam in the next month, which is another stepping stone to getting my Italian citizenship. In fact, it may well be the last stepping stone. And that will obviously be great because it means I'm a citizen of Italy. I'll have dual citizenship, which would be really cool. But it also means that I'm still a member of the EU, which I really want, especially as we're travelling around the EU and will be a lot in the future. Then I get the best of both worlds as an EU citizen and as a Brit. Simone has already got dual citizenship. She's British as well as Italian, and the kids are dual as well. So I've just got to catch up, and obviously that means I've got to study my Italian, which isn't so good. So that's one of my big projects for next month. And the other project, I'm pushing myself to get back into music, as you may know. I'm really excited by what I'm kind of planning and hoping to get on with once Grip the Sky is out the window and a few other things taken care of. But what I've been doing and what I want to do, and it's an ongoing thing for years, I wanted to do it, but now I'm finally kind of looking into it a bit more, is studying music theory. And I've got to start pretty much at the beginning because my theory is kind of shaky, very, very shaky. So I'm self-taught musician pretty much, and that means, pretty much, as in I get my tuition from books and from YouTube and from courses and bits that I pick up here and there. So, I'm taught by these people, whoever they may be. I didn't just sit there in a room on my own learning everything. But my music theory has never been strong, to the point where, I still struggle to understand the major scale when I'm playing on guitar, or, the different minor scales and whatnot. And these are kind of 101 basics. So I've devised a little methodology and a little plan to get my music theory up, because I figure that the first thing I want to know is, which are the notes of which scale, and I want them kind of off the top of my head, because I figure that'll be quite a useful thing no matter what instrument I play, to be able to say that the fifth note of the C major scale is G, for example. It's pretty much the only one I know off the top of my head. So I've set up these things called, these flashcards in an app called Anki, A-N-K-I. And I was put onto this relatively recently, like only a couple of years ago. And it's the same principle I'm using for learning Italian. And in fact, it's the person whose app I'm using for Italian who put me onto these Ankis. And it's a guy who's got a method for learning languages called Fluent Forever. And he made this brilliant point in his book, which I really suggest you read if you're interested in learning a language. But it kind of helps with learning anything. And his point was that where so much teaching and learning material falls down is you learn it in the moment, and you've probably got a good grasp of it when you do that chapter or that whatever. But then obviously you forget it over a period of time, especially if you don't use it. And that decay almost renders it useless. And in my mind, that's pretty much like, that's traditional schooling. You learn something during that period, that term or that lesson or that week or that semester or whatever. And then you don't really touch upon it again. Maybe you build on it, but probably you don't for a lot of these things. So you put it into your memory and then you don't use it, and therefore you lose it. And so it's, to my mind, a real wasteful kind of, that's why I don't think a lot of education, whether it's traditional education in schooling or whether it's just educating yourself with trying to learn a language, whatever, I think the reason why a lot of it doesn't stick is partly down to this. And so his methodology is you use flashcards, and I was like, okay, flashcards, I've heard of them before. But he says, but the problem with flashcards is unless you've got a system for kind of testing yourself against them and then keeping them current when you need them, and I'll explain a bit more in a second, then they're no good. So he suggested using what's called a spaced repetition system. And he suggested Anki, which is a free app, a free online thing. It's very basic looking, a bit clunky, but it's free. And so that's what put me onto it, and I'll explain what it is in a second. But then eventually he developed his own app, and then I've been using his app because it's much smoother. But for learning anything that isn't the languages that he's got in his app, then Anki is really good. So all a spaced repetition system is, if you haven't come across one, I think they're revolutionary, and they've been going for years, but I'm late to the party. All they are is, imagine you've got a bunch of flashcards. You look at it. If you get the answer right, you can kind of put it to a later. And if you get it wrong, you put it to the back of the pile that you've got to redo. And the idea is that any time you get something wrong, it goes back to the pile that you have to redo that day. And then the first time you get it right, it gets put back to the pile that you'll do maybe the next day. And then if you get it right again, it will be put back to the back of a pile that you probably won't look at for another week. And if you get it right again, maybe it gets put back for another month. And if it gets right again, maybe it's another 3 months. And if it's right again, maybe it's 6. You get the picture. But any time you get it wrong, it gets put back to your day's pile and it gets reset entirely. And it's really simple principle, and it's really, really effective, because the stuff that you remember, you don't practice so often, and the stuff, but it still comes up in time. And the stuff that you don't remember, you practice more regularly in that shorter period of time, and then it gets spaced out again. So if you're thinking you want to learn anything that you need to memorize, then I highly recommend looking into spaced repetition systems. And in my particular case, I'm using Anki. There may be others. They may be better than Anki, A-N-K-I. I think Anki Web, if you go to the website. So I'm using that system for learning the notes of the scale. So I'm starting with simple major scales. So, for example, the question will come up, what's the dominant or the fifth of the major scale of C? and then I go, it's, let's say, F, and I look at it and it's like, no, it's wrong, it's G. So then I mark it as wrong and it goes back to the pile that I'll redo that day, and then it will give me it again very soon. But if I get it right, G, brilliant, then it goes to a later pile. Really simple, really effective, really powerful system. So hopefully, I mean, time will tell, but hopefully that will enable me to get my my music theory moving a bit faster, and get on top of things. And then I'm going to learn the various different modes, and the harmonic. I was looking at, of course, again, Groove 3, you may have heard me talk about before. It's groove3.com. They have an immense library of music-related tutorials, videos, courses, covering all sorts of stuff, mostly production, but also I've discovered music theory, and the course is brilliant on music theory, the basic music theory explained. So I'm going through that, and that's kind of telling me stuff actually, thankfully, I do already know, but not so well. But it's now settling in after all these years, these terms and this stuff which I've kind of skirted around. I'm like, okay, yeah, now it's making sense. Now I kind of understand the terminology. So I got very excited to open up this world of music theory. Never thought I'd say that. So that's one of my other little plans. So yeah, build my music theory brain up, and eventually my other things related to music, my skill set. So yeah, that's that. Outside of that, for all of that, I don't spend enough time with the kids. I don't give Simona enough time, and I've got to look at doing that. Yeah, I need to make sure that I work on efficiency and get my focus moving, and start freeing up some time for Simona to have some time, because bless her, she just looks after the kids pretty much all day now, except for the day or day and a half a week that I'm not working, and even then she's still with us. She doesn't get time on her own. So for all of my studies and work and all of that, I also need to remember that I must carve out time and make that happen. So that's the view from the crow's nest for today, and 1 month away from my 40th, which I don't really think about, to be honest. I probably won't even notice it, but yeah, and tomorrow's Saturday. Probably will do a little bit of work, maybe take some time off. Sunday I'm taking a day off, so that's going to be cool. And that's all I got. If you're about on Twitter, come hook a brother up. Come see me at Romeo Crow. If you're in the market for marketing services, give me a shout. If you're in the market for just jibber jabber, give me a shout. Whatever, give me a shout. But thank you very much for listening, and I'll speak to you on the morrow. Cheers, champion. Goodly goodbyes.